Hi there, Sandra here, and welcome back to my channel and to another video. I'm back with another Arteza collaboration, and I really can't thank Arteza enough for being so kind and generous to send me all the supplies I've received so far to try out and to show you. So this time I received different supplies from Arteza, such as the set of 120 watercolors pencils, a mold-made watercolor pad, a pencil case, and the set of 120 regular colored pencils. And for today's video, I'm going to show you and try everything aside the regular pencils, which I made a separate video for them, which will be out next week, because I think otherwise it would have been too much in a single video. If you are new to my channel, I usually upload videos about gouache, but colored pencils have always been my second favorite medium to use after gouache, by itself or mixed with gouache. So I'm very excited to try these watercolor pencils and this watercolor pad, because I was very curious to see how this particular paper looks like and performs. And guys, I think I found my new favorite technique with watercolor pencils, which I will tell you more in details during this video. So first, regarding the watercolor pencils, here I have the set of 120 pencils, but on Arteza website you can find the smaller set of 48 or 72 watercolor pencils. These pencils come in this nice metal tin, and I don't know if it's because of the 120 set or it's a new package design, but I love that inside the metal tin on the lid we can find many information about these pencils, such as color name, color number, color swatch, and the light fastness information. And all these informations can be found on the back of the metal tin as well, but it's more practical seeing it inside as you opened the metal tin to choose and check the colors. On the watercolor pencils themselves, we can find the same information, and especially the brush symbol, which means they are water soluble. And of course, the first thing I love doing is making a color chart of these pencils to see and to show you how these colors look like, both dry and wet. So I first swatched all these pencils dry, and then I wet them with water to activate the pigment. Watercolor pencils are water-soluble pencils, which means the pigment is soluble with water. So watercolor pencils can be used as regular pencils or as watercolors, or both ways, while regular colored pencils are made of a wax base which aren't soluble with water, and they can be only used dry. And as soon as you add a drop of water to these pencils to activate the pigment, you can see how the color change. These pencils are pigmented, but they definitely become much more pigmented and brighter after adding water. These pencils blend nicely with water without leaving much graininess from the pencils. If you don't press too hard, it doesn't show well here because of the paper I used, which is not the best, but you will see later in the video what I mean and a better example. And this set includes some metallic colors, so it's a nice addition to have them. Although I must say that these metallic pencils aren't the shiniest compared to other metallic pencils I have from other brands, and moreover, they are shinier when dry than after wetting, but either way, you can use them in your drawings as regular colors as well. This set contains a beautiful range of colors and has a colored pencils lover I can never have enough colored pencils. Although after seeing all these colors together, I wish there would be more variety of green than red and gray, because some of these colors are quite similar among each other. But there are definitely unique colors that I love and it would be hard to find somewhere else, but this is just my personal opinion. And last, regarding the light fastness of these pencils, there are some colors that have excellent light fast resistance, but I'm still not sure if I could use them for selling original paintings. Light fastness is not too much of a concern for me because I mainly use colored pencils for sketches, and most of the artworks I create, I make prints and I don't sell the original, but still, I do consider these pencils to be higher quality than student grade, so it would be nice to use them for professional use. But if you aren't too concerned about light fastness, in my opinion Arteza pencils are really a good option with good quality for an affordable price. Regarding the pencil case, I find this pencil case to be a very nice travel case with a nice, durable and thick fabric, so I can tell you it is a nice quality. It comes with a handle on top to easily carry around this pencil case. It has jute zipper closure, and I love that it comes with an additional pocket to hold extra supplies as your sketchbook or else, which makes it perfect for traveling and creating on the go if you like to draw outside as well. It has a really huge capability with 64 elastic slots that are flexible and wide enough to hold up 205 pencils. So if you are looking for a big pencil case to store your pencils, even pens, markers and other supplies, this pencil case might be for you. In my case, the metal tin that Arteza colored pencils come in, it's really nice and practical, and it's easy to remove the plastic tray with the pencils on and to choose the colors I want. So this metal tin keeps the pencils well organized. So I'm going to leave the pencils there, but for example over the past summer I reviewed the markers and real brush pen, and they came in a plastic tray and plastic box, which I wasn't a fan of it, and it wasn't very comfortable and practical to use, so I put all the pens into these wooden boxes, but they are all over the place and it's very hard to see and choose the colors. So I will definitely use this pencil case to storage my markers and real brush pens and all my other color pencils that I have from different brands, so they are well organized. Regarding the Expert watercolor paper pad, this pad is glue bound on the top, so the pages can be easily detached from the pad, and this paper is cold press, 100% cotton, 300 GSM, acid free and mold-made. A short explanation: mold-made papers resemble handmade papers, but I reckon is still machine-made, and the main difference between most common watercolor papers and mold-made watercolor papers is within the durability and surface texture. Mold-made papers usually have more durable stability, the paper doesn't easily tear, and they have a more unique and handmade look surface texture. And in fact, this paper is really sturdy, it has a unique texture, it's still cold press, but it has a more rough feeling on the surface. This paper is 100% cotton, which usually 100% cotton papers have the best absorbency of water and paint that are very suitable for watercolors and water-based techniques. I enjoyed using this paper, and it's really a great quality paper, which I will tell you more about my experience using this paper during this video. I'm also planning to make a comparison between the Arteza papers I've tried so far in the next video, as there is a lot more to say to give you further details about this paper and about knowing what paper to choose for your painting style and depending on the art medium. But the most important information you need to know about this paper is that in general, mold-made watercolor paper and or 100% cotton papers are mostly used by artists for professional use because they are really good quality paper, and especially if they are 100% cotton, they have the best water and paint absorbency, which means the paint doesn't get lifted up easily, so it's great for overlaying many layers of paint on top of each other without losing the color vibrancy. So these are papers very suitable for watercolors in my opinion. And these are papers I enjoy using as well, but they are more expensive, which I definitely don't use for just practice painting, as it would be a waste of money and a waste of a good paper. So I personally would recommend this paper to more skilled artists and for watercolor artists. But with skilled artists, I mean that you are quite familiar how to work with watercolors or other water-based medium to really exploit the characteristics of this kind of paper. Paper is such a complex topic to talk about, which I will tell you more in the next video. But I can't emphasize enough how choosing the right paper that both suit your art style and the type of painting you are going to make is so important. And it doesn't have to be the most expensive paper to be the best quality, but there are certain papers that are more suitable for certain art mediums, and having a decent quality paper can really make a difference when painting. And to show you what I mean, I tested these watercolor pencils on different of my favorite papers I use for paintings, and I'm always amazed how differently all papers behave depending on the medium you use and how each paper has different features. So among the paper I tried, on first place there are the Arteza Mould-made and the Clairefontaine Ethereal watercolor papers, where the pigment really shines through and the pencils are so nicely blendable with water with the best washes result. Then on second place there is the premium Arteza mixed media paper, where the washes are really nice, where I also did some testing of these pencils and I wrote down some notes before I started filming this video, but it's only 180 GSM, so it's a bit lightweight for watercolor techniques. Then it comes the Hahnemühle Torchon watercolor paper and Hahnemühle bamboo mixed media paper, which are great quality paper, but the washes aren't so nice as the first two papers. Then the paper I used for making the color chart is called Zerkal, but it's not really the best paper and the surface is too rough, but I didn't want to waste one of my good quality paper for making the color chart. And last place is the Arteza Expert watercolor paper that I love using with gouache, but it's not the best for colored pencils because as you can see the colors aren't vibrant on this paper, and you can see how the colors are much more vibrant on the mold-made watercolor paper. By the way, if you are interested, I made a video about my favorite papers I use for painting, which I will link the video on top right in the card and in the description if you'd like to check it out. So the Arteza Mould-made paper is almost too good quality for just using color pencils, but watercolors really works well on this paper, as I'm going to use the Arteza watercolor pencils both dry and wet, so this was the perfect opportunity to try this paper. And by approaching this drawing, I tried different techniques on how you can use watercolor pencils, and that's what I'm going to show you today. but there are many more ways to use watercolor pencils. So if after this video you are interested to know more about watercolor pencils and to see more techniques on how to use them, in the description I will leave the links to other YouTube videos I watched which I found very informative, so definitely check them out. So the first and most used way you can use watercolor pencils is to lay down the pencils first and then go on top with water to activate the pigment. And very importantly, I first established where I wanted my value to be with my colored pencils before I used water by pressing harder with the pencils where I wanted the pigment and color to be stronger and leaving blank spaces for highlights, so that when I applied water to activate the pigment, I worked from the lightest area, so moving the water towards the pigment to achieve a nicer gradient and to have a nicer blend, because pushing the water towards the color, it will give you a smoother gradient and a nicer blend and an easier control on how concentrated the color will be. While if you do in the opposite way, you end up moving the color and the pigment toward the lightest area, that can ruin your fade. So this way I was able to achieve a nice fading and give more color contrast to my drawing. And when I applied too much water, or if the color wash was too strong and I wanted to be more transparent, I simply used a tissue paper or a dry brush to absorb the water and remove the excess water. So about this drawing, I recently got inspired by illustration stamps that I found on Pinterest with a very similar style to pencils and watercolors. So I'm planning to make a series of illustrations that could work well as stamps and inspired by my country, which by the way I'm from Switzerland. And when I think of my country, I think of countryside, farmer, wildflowers and nature. And one of the animal and bird I wanted to draw was a rooster. And when I was brainstorming ideas and I was sketching the image composition for this drawing, I think the poppy and the wheat really go well with the rooster. And these pencils are very pigmented, because activating few lines with water, the color can go a long way. And I'm pleased that you can also go on top of the watercolor washes with these pencils without much problems, because sometimes depending on the paper or the pencils, it doesn't work well, but always make sure the washes are completely dry before using colored pencils on top of watercolor washes, or it won't work well and the pencil's line on top won't be very strong. And from this you can activate the pigment again with water of the added pencil lines and blend them with water to give even more contrast. And my favorite way when using colored pencils is to go on top of the watercolor washes with the pencils to give an interesting texture and to add details. Another nice thing about watercolor pencils is that you can erase some of your mistakes, since these pencils are water soluble. So you can activate the pencil's lines with water to dissolve the pigment and remove those lines. But this can only work if you don't press too hard with your pencils, otherwise the pencil line will remain marked on the paper. And then another technique is to make a new color by blending two colors pencils together. So on a separate piece of paper, I swatched a pale yellow and a dark gray, and then with water I blended these two colors together to create a new color for the beak of my rooster. So with watercolor pencils, you don't necessarily need a huge selection of colors, as you can create new colors from the pencil you have if you use them wet, unlike with regular pencils, where the more color selection you have, the better it is to suit any color palette for any types of paintings. But I think with watercolor pencils, you can easily own a smaller color selection and blend different colors together to create more colors if you are going to use them wet. So a smaller set than 120 pencils would be enough. Although I used some colors like Midnight Blue, Rust Orange and Venetian Red, which I believe they are only in the 120 set, which were the exact colors I wanted to use. I find these pencils to be very durable and sturdy, both the pencils and tip, even when layering quite heavily, but the tip occasionally broke a little, but only when I was pressing too harsh. But for me, this also happens with colored pencils from other brands. In one of my previous videos, where I reviewed the Arteza colored pencils, I had some problems with the tip breaking and falling off from the pencil, but I wasn't sure if it was because of my old sharpeners or because of the pencils. Then in that video, some people in the comments recommended me to buy the T-Gal sharpener, which I bought when I went to Japan last year. And after using the sharpener, I believe it was my old sharpener's fault, because since I started using the T-Gal sharpener, I noticed less breaking, and I love using it with Arteza pencils because I can choose how long I want the tip to be, and I noticed that with Arteza pencils, if the tip isn't too long, it doesn't break too easily. And apparently, after seeing other colored pencils video on YouTube, the best way to sharpen your pencils to avoid breaking is to rotate the sharpener and not the pencil to sharpen your pencils, which I tried, but I'm not sure if this really works. I find it more comfortable rotating the pencil inside the sharpener and not the opposite way. Then another technique is to put colors on a separate piece of paper and use it like a mixing surface. So I activated the pigment from the watercolor pencils with water, and then I laid down the color as if I would be using regular watercolor paint, instead of laying down the pencil first and then activate the pigment later with water. I find this technique very useful to not have harsh edges and harsh outlines, which it was exactly what I wanted for the background. But this method requires a lot of pigment from the watercolor pencils and a bit more patience and time, but it totally works. And here I ask myself, what is the point of watercolor pencils? Because it would be easier and probably I would need less pigment by using watercolor paint directly to lay down these color washes. But I think watercolor pencils can really be used in so many different ways, and thinking about it, if you can't afford to buy watercolor paint, which is usually more expensive than colored pencils, watercolor pencils might be the best solution for you to work and experiment with both wet and dry medium. To be honest, I don't think I ever gave watercolor pencils a solid try to make a full painting like this one. I mostly use them dry on top of gouache or for sketches. I like using both regular and watercolor pencils, but I think I prefer watercolor pencils more because they are usually softer and they don't leave a glossy finish as regular pencil. And after giving watercolor pencils a solid try, I had so much fun trying different ways to use these pencils. I love the control I have with the washes by using the watercolor pencils. It really suits my art style and the way I like to work, because unlike with watercolor paint, the washes are more uncontrolled which it's the beauty of watercolors, but it doesn't really suit my painting style and the way I like my art to be. Obviously, the finished look by painting with colored pencils, it's a different style than using gouache. The result can also result a bit chalky, where you might still see some of the pencil's graininess, even when you dissolve very well the pigment of watercolor pencils with water. This is just me, but I personally prefer the smooth and velvet finish of gouache for my paintings. But I really had fun using watercolor pencils, and I always loved using colored pencils with gouache occasionally to give a different texture and look to certain types of paintings. And I can't remember the last time I had so much fun experimenting with a new medium, so for all these reasons I think I just found a new favorite technique, and these pencils are really good quality. The pigment dissolves well with water and they have a nice laydown. Although the only struggle I had during this painting was on the blue feather. I was struggling a bit how to paint them because I wasn't sure how to approach them to leave some highlights, and in this moment I wished so badly I could use gouache to add highlights and to cover and fix some of my mistakes, because when working with watercolors and watercolor pencils, you have to think ahead where the values are going to be and which colors goes where, because you can only work from light to dark, which is not super easy actually. While with gouache you can also work from dark to light, and you are able to fix some of your mistakes. So I tried my best, but on certain spots there are mistakes that can be fixed. And during the painting process, I noticed that with this paper I wasn't able to give very defined details as I wished, because the surface is a bit rough, although it is a cold pressed paper, but it's not as smooth as other cold pressed paper I have. But I still was able to add details which worked well at the end, and I really enjoyed painting on this paper. This paper behaves quite similar to the Clairefontaine Etival watercolor paper I have, because both paper absorb paint and water well, and the paint underneath doesn't get lifted up very easily, so they are really great paper for watercolor specifically, to overlay different layers of paint on top of each other, because the colors don't get mixed up, leaving very vibrant color washes. The paper buckled a bit, but I applied quite a lot of water, and I didn't tape the paper down on a hardboard support to prevent the paper from buckling. But this is a sturdy paper after all, and it remained pretty flat overall. And I love the outcome of this Rooster drawing. And I think that's it. This has been quite a long video, but I hope you found it informative and helpful. So for next video, I'm going to use the regular pencils with gouache on this paper again to make another painting, which I'm so excited about it, and I hope you will be looking forward as well. Definitely check my next video when it will come out, because it will be connected to this video, and I'm going to give additional informations about this paper and Arteza papers overall. So yeah, as always, in the description of this video you will find the links to all the supplies shown in today's video, as well as the links to Arteza website and Arteza YouTube channel, which you should definitely check it out. I also have a coupon code for you for a limited time to get 10% off on your order if you purchase anything from Arteza website, and you will find my personal coupon code in the description as well. And I think that's all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!